I was recently looking after a little girl, and one thing that stood out to me was her walk. Now, there was nothing wrong with her walk. It was just that she never looked where she was going. So she was constantly running into walls or tripping over toys. And each time she did, she would get hurt and she would cry and she would run back for comfort. And then when she started to feel better, she would get back down and she would do it all over again. And this got me thinking, how many of us are doing this with God? We're walking through life not looking where we're going, and we're walking into wrong relationships or bad jobs, or we're tripping over pride or idolatry or so many other things. And then we get hurt and we run back to God for his comfort, and he picks us up and we sit on his lap and he wipes our tears and gives us a hug. And when we start to feel better, we get back down and we start walking through life again. Now, also, when I was watching this little girl, I could always see the wall that she was about to hit or the toy that she was about to trip over. So I was constantly giving her warnings, telling her to be careful, to look where she was going. And she had two choices. She could either listen to my warnings or she could ignore them and keep going. God does the exact same thing with us. He's constantly watching us, constantly seeing what walls in our lives we're about to hit or what things we're about to trip over. And like a loving parent who doesn't want his child to get hurt, he's giving us warnings. And we also have two choices. We can either ignore them and keep going and hit the wall, or we can take a moment and we can stop and we can examine our surroundings and see what's in front of us and change our direction to avoid that wall and avoid the pain that comes with hitting that wall. Now, so many of us are walking through life not looking where we're going, but we're also ignoring the warnings that God is giving us. So we continue to get hurt. Now, thankfully, we serve a merciful and a gracious God who will always allow us to come back to him and will always comfort us when we get hurt. But we also need to be careful that this doesn't become a cycle, that we don't just run to God when we get hurt and when we want his comfort, and then when we get back down, we forget about everything he's done for us, and we forget to listen to his warnings, and we continue to walk through life not listening to God's warnings, and then we get hurt again and we run back to God, and it just becomes this perpetual cycle of just only going to God when we get hurt. Because God's will for us is not to get hurt. He doesn't want us to go through the pain of hitting walls, which is why he's constantly giving us warnings. We don't have to look very far in the Bible to see God warning his children. God warned Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of life. But what did they do? They ignored him and they ate the fruit, and it changed the whole world. When we ignore God's warnings, it has the power to change our entire world. So if you're walking through life not looking where you're going, I can guarantee you that God is sending you warnings. And I strongly urge you to take a moment and to listen to those warnings and to examine where you're going and to change your direction, to not to hit those walls. But if you've already hit that wall, don't be discouraged, because God will always allow you to come back to him and will always comfort you. So run back to him, get that comfort, allow him to heal the pain from hitting that wall. But when you get back down, remember to listen to God's warnings so in the future you can avoid walls and avoid the pain that comes with hitting those walls.